Well, thank you everyone for joining us today on this beautiful Thursday morning, maybe afternoon or evening for you, Tim. We appreciate that you took some time out of your day to learn a bit more about the latest and greatest for all things Clockwise. And I am personally very excited to share more about what's coming and what we just rolled out from our team. So before we jump in, I'd like to introduce who you're going to hear from today. So first up, I'm Cecily, and I'm a product manager here on the team. You'll also be hearing from Nikita, who's a front-end engineer, and Linda, who's an engineering manager. And the three of us and many other folks all focus on building the calendar automation and the smart scheduling that we'll be talking you through for the next 30 minutes or so. So before we dive in, we do always like to start with our mission, and that's to make time for what matters. And I like to share that, not because it's a platitude, but because it comes from a strong belief that everyone, each of us, can have a better schedule every workday. And I know when I say that, you might be reacting, you might be saying, like, that's hard, that's not actually possible. But we're really excited to talk you through some ideas today for how you might be able to get there. And we'll start with our first pro tip. And that's this: the secret to a better workday and a schedule you love ultimately lies in your calendar. And, with the new year, we thought, new calendar, it's time. Let's reflect and think more about how we can set up our day so every day is productive and sustainable. So we'll talk through that. And we're going to do that in three ways. The first is with a quick tour of the Clockwise web app. We'll point out areas you might want to explore either during this webinar or after, so you understand a little bit more about the product landscape. Next, we'll dig into how we calendar internally. And our hope with this section is that you understand how to get the most out of your limited time, whether you're an engineering manager, a software engineer, or someone with a bit more of a hybrid role like me. And then, as always, we'll save a little bit of time at the end for questions. So as things come up, whether that's a question or a reaction throughout this webinar, please do drop it in the Zoom Q&A or the chat, and we'll be sure to either cover them live or after the session. All right, so let's dig in. We are going to pull up the new Clockwise web app. And for those of you that are seeing this for the first time, welcome. And for those of you who have already seen this, welcome back. I'll be walking you through some key areas before we dive into our quick tips for you. So, before we do that, like I just mentioned, I'll be calling out features and interesting places in the web app that I think are helpful. And I would love to hear from each of you. If there's a space that you like, or if there's a tip that you'd like to share, please put it in the chat as well. So let's jump in. We're on the home screen right now. And the home space offers a quick glimpse for you to see how you're spending your time. Ideally, you can use that to figure out how you might want to optimize your day or what you might want to keep in your day. And from there, you can check out one of these 6 tiles to figure out where you might want to explore more or what you might want to jump into further. So we're going to start by jumping into your ideal day. This is one of my favorite spaces in the application, and you're actually getting a sneak preview of a refreshed look for your ideal day that's coming soon. So in your ideal day, you can tell Clockwise what's important to you. For some of us, that might be heads down focus time to get work done. For others, that might be lunch or breaks, maybe even travel time if you find yourself meeting a lot offsite. Once you tell us that, Clockwise will do our best to make it happen. Next up here is our flexible meeting space. So what I like to share with folks is after you check out your ideal day, you go in there and you tell us what's important to you, you should then come to the flexible meetings page, because the way that Clockwise can create your ideal day, whether that's focus time or breaks, is by moving meetings for you. So in this space, you can tell us what meetings you are okay moving and make them flexible. And then we'll intelligently move them based on the preferences that you give us and the preferences that your teammates have given us. And kind of goes without saying that the more meetings you mark as flexible, the more we can give you your ideal day. And we like to highlight your one-on-ones because we find that those are really good candidates for flexible meetings, especially as you're learning and getting more familiar with the product and how we work. Next up is flexible holds. So as you're probably walking away with at this point, flexibility is the name of the game with calendaring at Clockwise. But it's not just limited to meetings. You can also apply flexibility to the holds you have on your calendar. These are things like recurring routines, maybe taking a quick break once a day or walking the dog, or even one-off tasks that you hold on your calendar to make sure they get done. Something like, prep for QBR. What's special about this is if you make it flexible, as your schedule changes, Clockwise can automatically shuffle those events, so your calendar reacts a little bit like Liquid as conflicts pop up or someone schedules over your hold. And then finally, and just really quickly, we also have our scheduling link space. So we just talked about ways that Clockwise helps you create a better schedule and make meetings move. We also help you meet externally. We offer individual scheduling links and my personal favorite, group links. So someone external can schedule with multiple people at once. And then in addition to scheduling links, we also have our new connected application space. And this is where you can go to see the applications that Clockwise can plug into. So we're kind of helping you across all of the places you work, whether that's Asana or Slack. My personal favorite is the GCal plugin. And that is it for the product tour. So we've highlighted some of the key spaces in the Clockwise web app. You can check out your ideal day, flexible meetings, flexible holds. And next, we'll make it a little bit more tangible by sharing some best practices for how you can put these pieces together. So we are going to share some tips, and we hope that these tips help you get a better schedule today, tomorrow, throughout this year. And we'll be doing that by role. So we'll have Linda share her perspective on Clockwise tips and tricks to get a better schedule as an engineering manager. We'll have Nikita share some best practices for her role as a software engineer. And then I will come back in and share some tips for how to manage your calendar like a hybrid worker. So first up, let's hear from you, Linda.
Awesome. Thanks, Cecily. So hi, everyone. I'm Linda. I'm an engineering manager here at Clockwise. And so in my role, a lot of my goals are oriented towards my team. Some of my goals involve making sure that my team is as productive as possible, that they're staying unblocked on all of their respective projects. Another big part of it is making sure that all my team members is happy. And that we're just having regular check-ins so I can stay aware of everything that's going on, which is a big part of what I need from my calendar. And lastly, there's a lot of team initiatives, but I also need time to get my own work done. So I also need some amount of deep work time to focus on my own initiatives. So I heavily rely on my calendar to make sure that I actually have time at work to accomplish all of these tasks rather than potentially maybe having to work a couple hours outside of work. And I really like Clockwise, not just as employee, but just as a user, so that I'm able to get all those things done in the workday. So I'll walk you through a little bit of how I use Clockwise. So starting off with my team, a big part of making sure my team is productive is making sure that they have the focus time and deep work time to get things done. And one way I can use Clockwise to do this is by setting up a team no meeting day. And effectively what that means is this is a day intended for the team to just focus on getting the kind of really intense work that might need hours of deep work to get done. And so when anybody schedules on top of their no meeting day, they get this email on the left asking them to, maybe consider rescheduling it off of their no meeting day so that that time can be protected. And secondly, a big part of my role is just making sure I'm aware of everything that's going on, that I'm planning ahead. And so the team out of office calendar is really good for that. It essentially takes out of office from everybody's calendars. It combines that with the company holidays, etc. And so I get this nice overview of everything that's going on in my team for the next week, the next sprint, the next month. And I can see that as a glance and like plan coverage and make sure we have the right amount of bandwidth. Yeah, and then next up, another big part of the work is just having time to regularly check in with my team, have one-on-ones with them, and also make sure that my calendar is free for folks from other teams to book time with. So on the left is a real screenshot of all my one-on-ones. You can see that there's quite a few. They're spread out between like weekly one-on-ones, bi-weekly one-on-ones, and also less frequent like monthly or like every 6 weeks or something like that. And so a big part of calendaring pain for me historically has been like having to manage all of these one-on-ones as things come up. So like inevitably meetings get moved, meetings get scheduled, they get rescheduled, etc. And then I find myself like in a Zoom meeting, maybe like this, and then like having to Slack and Google Calendar on the side to try to fix those issues. So I really like flexible meetings for helping me make sure that I have time for all these one-on-ones, even when my day is like getting busier and busier. And then another big part of this is in terms of helping me and my team be more productive. A huge feature of flexible meetings is that it creates focus time on everybody's calendar. You can see this with the GIF on the right, where it's like not only fixing conflicts, but arranging meetings in a way that creates focus time. And this helps me be more productive. It helps my team be more productive. So it's a win-win all around. And yeah, and then like one like little tip for me personally at Clockwise is that like I check in on that one-on-one dashboard on that left side, which is on our flexible meetings page, to periodically like make sure that I'm spending time in these one-on-ones in a way that matches my priorities, maybe decrease the cadence every once in a while, maybe increase the cadence every once in a while, and so on. And then lastly, I think we talked a lot about meetings, like how I make sure my team is productive, but I also need time to get my own work done. And a big part of my role is I want to make sure that my time is flexible for others to book on top of. So I don't want to like say that like don't book on top of like this slot, or don't book on top of like all of the time on my calendar. So how I really balance that is I use Clockwise's auto decline feature. So I mark like specific slots where I need to get like a specific initiative done. For example, like write a doc or do some roadmap planning and so on. And then I mark that as protected so that Clockwise declines all incoming meetings. And so that's a really nice balance for me, where like my calendar is mostly flexible for others to book on top of, but also there's these hard chunks where I'm able to get my work done. Yeah, so hopefully that was helpful. These are a lot of ways that I use Clockwise to help me get my work done. And from here, I'll pass it off to Nikita.
Thanks, Linda. Hi, everyone. My name is Nikita. I'm a front-end engineer here at Clockwise. And in my role as an IC, my primary goal is to execute on my team's projects and priorities, and also to collaborate with and support my teammates. In the next few slides, I'll show you how I use Clockwise to achieve these goals in a way that's sustainable. First up, we have flexible holds. As you've heard Cecily mention, flexible holds can be anything. Work tasks, personal tasks, routines, or one-off. The screenshot you see is my flexible holds dashboard. The key thing to remember here is that Clockwise can move these through the day so they don't get lost, because these are events that it doesn't really matter when in the day they happen, just that I get to them. I use these for one-off tasks, like you see here, a hold to remind me to prep for a pairing session with a couple other engineers. But I also particularly love the recurring routine up top, reminding me to walk my dog Pongo on afternoons I'm at home. Next, we have one-on-one day of the week. Even though I'm an individual contributor, I don't work in a silo. I've set up regular one-on-ones with teammates on adjacent teams because it helps me connect with them in a remote first world, but it also gives me dedicated time to learn from them and collaborate with them on larger initiatives. I've marked these to be flexible within certain days of the week, so I still get the benefit of that additional focus time that Linda alluded to when Clockwise moves these on my behalf, but it still gives me predictability through the week, so I'm not context switching a bunch. Finally, personal calendar sync is a feature where Clockwise places a busy block on my work calendar for events such as this dentist appointment on my personal calendar. This also syncs with Slack when it's happening. I use this when I want to communicate my availability to my teammates, but because the event is private, I love that Clockwise just marks it as busy so that my privacy is maintained. Now I'll pass it back to Cecily to round us out.
Awesome. Thank you, Nikita and Linda. So as we talked about earlier, I am a product manager on the team, and that means that my role is a little bit of a hybrid between what you heard Linda and Nikita talk about. That means that balance is really the name of the game for me. Specifically, I need to balance finding time to meet with a lot of people, admittedly, and finding time to have a little bit of heads down space to unblock my team or even have longer bits of time to get my own personal work done. And that can be hard, but here's how I do it. And it's something I've learned over the last couple of years. And I found that Clockwise actually supports me with quite a bit. And the tip here is that I spend as little time as possible managing my calendar. You know, my time is already really crunched. And I find that if I'm in my calendar less, I'm able to spend more time on the things that actually drive outcomes for me and my team. The key, though, is that I want to be able to spend less time managing my calendar, but still getting my preferred schedule. So it's a little bit of like, I want the cake and I want to eat it too. I find, though, that Clockwise is a tool that I can delegate to help me achieve that. So the first way I do that, the first way I spend less time managing my calendar is with scheduling links. So we showed you the scheduling links page earlier. Often, like probably many of you on the call, I need to schedule externally as well as internally. With external scheduling, it was often a bit of a back and forth, right? Whether that's with a vendor or with a customer who I'm doing a research call with. In the before times, I was often syncing time and back and forth emails, figuring out what was a good time or a better time, evaluating my calendar, and figuring out where I could slot something in such that I still got some heads down time or a break in the day to get work done. After, with Clockwise, things are a little easier. And I know we're all familiar with scheduling links, whether that's individual links like we offer or group links, which we also offer. But the key and the magic with the Clockwise links that I really love is that Clockwise is smarter about what times it offers to the person I'm trying to meet with. Specifically, as you see on the right, I can tell Clockwise what matters most to me per scheduling link. So maybe for one scheduling link, I want Clockwise to try to preserve my focus time, meaning it will offer times to someone that are a little bit more constricted with that in mind. With another scheduling link, I sometimes want to preserve my availability because I really want to meet with that person. So Clockwise will thoughtfully offer more times to them and nudge them to the best time based on my preferences in my calendar. So it kind of offers me the best of both, which is scheduling faster without clobbering some of those working preferences that we talked about earlier. The second way I spend less time managing my calendar is with Smart Reschedule. So, picture this. I think it's something we're probably pretty familiar with. You look at your calendar, you notice a conflict, and it's 5 minutes before the next meeting, and you have to attend both. That means you have to reschedule one of them. Before Clockwise, for me, that meant that I was usually like clicking a bunch of boxes in my Google Calendar, pulling up all of my teammates' calendars, and then finding that small sliver of time where we were free and moving the meeting. And that was the best case because sometimes I was actually unable to see my teammates' calendars and I just saw busy blocks. So I really wasn't even sure like where I could schedule or what I could schedule over. With Clockwise though, reschedule is a little easier for me. It's really just a few clicks away. So when I notice a conflict on a calendar, when I'm looking at my day, or if it's a flexible meeting, sometimes Clockwise actually alerts me to the conflict. I can go to my calendar like you're seeing on the screen, and I can click into the meeting. And in the Google Calendar sidebar, an extension we offer, I can see suggestions for open times I might reschedule to. And what I love about this is it's not just any open time. It's times that are in line with both my preferences and my teammates' preferences. And Clockwise has a pretty handy color coding for helping me figure out, what's good or not. So you'll see me actually reschedule to the best time available, which Clockwise is highlighting in green. But in the case that that doesn't work for me, I can select a new time. And at least now I'm aware that that other time might be a lot of consecutive meeting hours for my colleague, Raf. So it's pretty easy to do. If you have a conflict on your calendar, click into that meeting, check out the suggestions, and in a handful of steps, it's kind of done. Something Lisa actually asked as well in the Q&A is that she's experienced some overlaps with flexible meetings. And we know that happens. Clockwise does our best to move meetings based on your preferences and your teammates' preferences. But what that means is there are some times where we just can't resolve a conflict well today. And so what we do is in email and Slack, we notify you that there is a conflict. And I encourage you, if you see that notification, to then go to your calendar and use Smart Reschedule to more efficiently reschedule that conflict. At the least, the reschedule is just a few clicks away instead of the steps of pulling up a bunch of calendars and trying to figure out what time works best. All right, and then last up here, the last way Clockwise helps me spend less time managing my calendar is with smart breaks. So I think a lot of us, especially in this post-COVID, very hybrid, remote-friendly world, have been in a space where the day starts, we pull up our calendar and we see maybe 4 to 5 hours of consecutive meetings. Maybe we shriek, we go grab another cup of coffee. But ultimately, we then have to sit down and reactively figure out where we can find a space for a 5-minute or 10-minute break. And usually because it's reactive, it's really hard at that point. It involves telling someone you might be late or even shuffling something around. And I did that a ton before Clockwise. Now though, I use smart meeting breaks. And I like these because Clockwise has my back. So what I've done is I've turned on 15-minute breaks after 2 hours of consecutive meetings. And you could do this too if you check out your ideal day. And what that means is that after 2 hours of consecutive meetings, Clockwise will actually automatically and proactively schedule a short break for me. So I like this because it's kind of just handled. It means that as I pull up my calendar for the day, even if I have a lot of meetings, I know that I will at least have time for a breather, maybe time to grab water or do a quick lap around the house before my next meeting. So that's it. That's it for the tips and tricks. We were really excited to share these with you. And, I imagine and I'm hoping that you're walking away with a better understanding of where to find things in the Clockwise app and maybe some interest to check it out yourself at getclockwise.com/app. And then more importantly, with some ideas for how you can use all of the things in the Clockwise app and configure them to create a better schedule based on your role, whether you're an EM, a software engineer, or someone who's a little bit more hybrid like myself. So as always, we love to hear your feedback in terms of what's resonating, what didn't, things you'd like to hear more about. You can do that at this link or via this QR code. And now we'll just have a few minutes for Q&A. So let's dig in. I'm just going to pull up the screen here. So if you have any lingering questions or thoughts, now is the time to drop them in that Q&A box. All right. Is there a way? Okay, so someone asked, is there a way to mark scheduling link meetings to automatically be private in my Google Calendar? That's a good question. So right now we don't offer that. Specifically, when someone schedules with your scheduling link, the meeting that shows on your calendar will inherit your Google Calendar preferences. So if that's visible to everyone, everyone will see that meeting. And if that's private, it will be marked private. All right, looks like Gina has a question as well. Is there a way to use scheduling links for specific, so for specific like one-off meetings? So today we don't offer one-off meetings, but I have kind of a hack that I like to use when I want to spin up a link really quickly. If you have the extension installed, so for example, if you're a Google Calendar user and you use Chrome a lot, when you download the extension, there will actually be a Clockwise toolbar app that you can show in your browser toolbar. And I'm clicking on mine right now, but if you were to click on yours, you would see a list of all of your scheduling links really quickly and easily available. So one, this is a fast way to find any scheduling link, but two, to your point, you can actually really quickly create a link in just a few clicks directly from the kind of the extension toolbar. So when I have a link that I just want to spin up for someone, honestly, it doesn't happen too much, but in the case that it does, I just come here and in 3 clicks, I've spun up a new link. You can also actually directly from the screen, turn links on and off. So if there are links that you only want active or visible for a certain set of time, you can configure that here. Okay, let's see here. John has a question. It's been a while since I've used Clockwise. Well, John, welcome back. Hopefully we've convinced you to dig back into the Clockwise world. Does it still have the driving time to meetings feature? That was one of my favorites. Yes, that is also one of my favorites. So in your ideal day, so if you go to getclockwise.com/app, you can go to your ideal day, you scroll a bit down the screen, you'll see travel time. And that's what you're referring to here. So with travel time, you can tell us where you work most often. So for me, that's my house, as you see in the background here. So I put in my home address. And then because I have travel time turned on, when I have a meeting that has a location on it that is not my home, Clockwise will automatically schedule travel time to the event and returning from the event. So it that prevents me from having back-to-back meetings that I then have to cancel to make sure I have time to travel somewhere. All right, let's see. Someone asked if Clockwise does something to make scheduling a bit simpler. I feel group meetings are very hard to schedule. Yes, anonymous attendee, I agree with you. I am also someone that schedules with a lot of busy people. It can be very painful to schedule a meeting with my VP, Vicky, our CEO, Matt, and our head of engineering, Dan, because we're all very busy. And when I'm doing that, I find that I'm in that same situation I mentioned earlier, which is I pull up everyone's calendar, I click the little boxes, and then I'm like forced to confront a series of overlapping schedules where I can't even assess what time is open or what isn't. So right now, I have 2 answers for you. The first is Clockwise does offer a smart scheduling option. So either in the application, in the planner tab, or in the Google Calendar or extension, you can find a schedule meeting button. And when you click that button, just like when you schedule other meetings, you're able to add attendees in. And when you add those attendees, Clockwise will give you a suggested time to meet, very similar to that reschedule flow I showed you just a second ago. So that's one way that Clockwise makes it a little bit easier to schedule with busy people. Just admittedly, Clockwise sometimes struggles when there are a lot of people that you're trying to schedule with. So I just want to call out that you might find that we don't give you the best times as your meeting grows. That's right now, though. I'm actually really happy you asked this question because over the coming months, we're thinking very consciously about how we can help people like you schedule more efficiently with other busy people. So how we can give you better time suggestions or make the experience better and more seamless. So, if you're interested, please fill out the feedback form that we have linked here, because we'd love to talk to you about your experience. All right, what else? Okay. Will Clockwise be able to use with Outlook? Oh, okay. So John asked if we offer a product for Microsoft and not just Google Calendar. And the answer is it's in the works. So we've been developing the Clockwise experience, the Clockwise product for Microsoft. And, you know, I'm admittedly not the PM for this product. My colleague Krishnan is. So what I can tell you is it's coming soon. And John, if you'd like to, you know, give us feedback on early versions of the product or let us know what's most important to you, I also encourage you to fill out that feedback form. And as Emily just chatted here, you can also join the waitlist at getclockwise.com/Microsoft, and we'll notify you first once it's publicly available. So coming soon. All right, let's see here. So I'm just reading another question. Okay, so it looks like, it looks like we have time for 1 to 2 more questions here. So someone mentioned that they have multiple simultaneous projects, okay? And they asked, can Clockwise help me create focus time for each project within my calendar? So I'll share my thoughts on this, but then I would love to hear Linda or Nikita to hear your thoughts, since you also tend to manage a lot of projects at once. So kind of high level with focus time, you tell Clockwise how much focus time you tend to need or ideally want to have in a given week. So you could go to your ideal day and say, hey, Clockwise, ideally, I would have about 10 hours of focus time a week. So about 2 hours of heads down time each day. That's how I have the product set up, just as an example. So it's configured at a week level. What you can do in order to allocate focus time blocks to specific projects, and this is something I do, is you can actually go into blocks of focus time that we put on your calendar, so those holds, and you can rename them. So something I've done in the past is I've pulled up a focus time block I have on a Friday for 3 hours, and I say, I'm going to use this for product metrics workshop, and I actually rename it. And something that I also like to do is what Linda mentioned earlier, which is for something that's high priority, I like to protect that focus time and tell Clockwise to automatically decline meetings that come in during it. Okay, here. Yes, Tim mentioned it would be nice to build a desktop view gadget so you can see it anytime. Tim, we agree with you and we hear you. Maybe one day in the future. Okay, let's see here. Oh, so Thomas mentioned that you're looking to retroactively review meetings. Is there a way to export meeting details, including attendees? So Clockwise, aside from moving your meetings and helping you structure them to get a better schedule and a better workday, doesn't have a feature around managing the content of the meeting or the attendees of the meeting or the agenda. I do know that's a best practice, especially in our hybrid worlds, in terms of managing our meetings most effectively. So as you're thinking of these things and as they're important to you, please do let us know, because we can consider them as we think about the future of the product. All right. Oh, okay. And then last question here from Tim. Okay, so are a lot of people using this tool personally? Okay, so Tim, you're asking about, can I use this tool myself before I invite my team? And the answer is yes. Obviously at Clockwise, we're the most power of the power users, so all of us use it. But a lot of our customer organizations, as people are getting more familiar with it, the person who finds Clockwise will sign up, install it, and then use it themselves for maybe a week or so, and kind of get a sense of how we help you manage your calendar and how we move meetings and how we communicate with you. So that is very possible. You can sign up and use our free plan, or even sign up for a single seat plan yourself. What I do like to share with people though, who ask me this question, is that we can certainly do a lot for you as a single person, but the Clockwise magic really starts to hit once you have some teammates using it with you. Because when Clockwise is able to understand your preferences and your teammates' preferences, it can more effectively move the meetings that you've marked flexible to help you get those ideal days. When it's just you, we can certainly help, but we're a little limited because we don't understand what your teammates want or need in their schedule. All right. Well, thank you for all of the great questions. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you all taking the time today. Just quick plug here, as you have questions or feedback, please check out our bit.ly link or the QR code, and we will do our best to review them. So thank you.